Warning, this video contains information proving Nancy Pelosi has been intentionally misleading the American people regarding Pelosi and the Democratic Party's ability to end this war and bring our troops home.
American voters gave the Democrats control of the Congress in large part to end the war in Iraq. That hasn't happened. Whose fault is that? My exclusive interview with the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. Let's talk about the war in Iraq. When you became Speaker, you said bringing the war to an end is my highest priority as Speaker. Now, you've been Speaker now for 9 months. The war, if anything, is not only continuing, but it's expanding. There's more troops now in Iraq than there were when you became the Speaker. What are you going to do about that?
Well, what we did when we took office, we took the majority here. We changed the debate on the war. We put a bill on the President's desk that said that we wanted the redeployment of troops out of Iraq to begin in a timely fashion and to end within a year. The President vetoed that bill. He got quite a response to that veto, and the Republicans in the Senate then decided that he was never going to get a bill on his desk again. So we have a barrier, and it's important for the American people to know that while I can bring a bill to the floor in the House, it cannot be brought up in the Senate unless there's a 60 vote. Now, 60...
What 60 vote barrier in the United States Senate? If you're referring to the 60 votes required to pass legislation, it's not about passing legislation. That's not how we've brought our troops home in the past. It's about blocking legislation. And it only takes 41 Democratic senators to block any Republican war funding bills. That's a fact. Please stop misleading us, Nancy Pelosi.
Couldn't the House of Representatives use your power of the purse, the money, just to stop funding the war if you really wanted to?
I wish the Speaker had all the power you just described.
Let's take a close look at what Nancy Pelosi said. She actually told Wolf Blitzer, "I wish the Speaker had all the power you just described." And in the very next breath, she said, "I certainly could do that."
I certainly could do that.
Again, let's listen to Nancy Pelosi without interruption.
I certainly could do that. That doesn't bar the minority.
Couldn't the House of Representatives use your power of the purse, the money, just to stop funding the war if you really wanted to?
I wish the Speaker had all the power you just described. I certainly could do that. That doesn't bar the minority.
You know your base is really frustrated, really angry that this war continues, and they say you should be doing more.
But I just said to you, we did that. We sent it to the President. He vetoed it. Any further attempts to do that have been met by the 60-vote barrier in the United States Senate. Now, I'll be the last person to give you a civics lesson.
Oh, but you're giving us a civics lessons, all right. You're misleading the American people into believing it's going to take 60 votes to end this war, when the truth is, by filibustering, it only takes 41 votes in the Senate to end this war. You could end this war as Speaker of the House by blocking any war funding bill from coming to the floor of the House for a vote. But you won't tell anyone that, so I will. I just did.
About what that means. But what it does mean is that the Republicans in the Senate have now taken ownership of the war in Iraq. It was President Bush's war, and now it is the Republicans in Congress' war. Saddam Hussein certainly has chemical and biological weapons. There's no question about that.
Are you telling your angry base out there in the Democratic Party that wants to see this war over with, wants to see the U.S. troops home, that you as Speaker, there's nothing you can do, you have to just throw your hands up and say...
I didn't say that at all.
Given the legislative problems in the Senate and the President's stubborn refusal to back down, that there's nothing that you can do?
How could you have ever gotten that impression?
We got that impression from you, misleading us about needing the President's signature to end this war, when you know that's not true. And we got that impression from you misleading us about needing 60 votes to end this war, when you know that's not true.
We will hold this administration accountable time and time again for the conduct of this war in Iraq. I've always said that impeachment is off the table. This is President Bush's war. I've always said that impeachment is off the table. It's Vice President Cheney's war. I've always said that impeachment is off the table. And now it's become the war of the Republicans in Congress. We don't have to discuss how we went in the false premise. That's well known to the American people.
In other words, Nancy Pelosi is against holding an investigation into who provided the false information used to go to war in Iraq. According to her, it's not important. She wants to just move on and gloss over this most serious of constitutional violations, which resulted in the needless deaths of thousands of American soldiers and Iraqi civilians.
If there's no accountability, there's no lesson learned, and we're doomed to go to needless war again.
From which it is going to be harder to redeploy out of Iraq.
But so when you hold the president accountable, I just want you to explain what does that mean besides just complaining and holding hearings? Specifically, is there anything else? Holding hearings and the oversight
that we have on the corruption in contracting in Iraq, the hearings that we protect our diplomats and protect our troops who are there, fight the Al-Qaeda, and if we have to train the troops, if we have to continue to train the Iraqi security forces, we can do it. It doesn't have to be in country, and it doesn't have to be all American. That can be done out of country. So we're talking about a greatly diminished force there, and a redeployment when safe and responsible within the next year. The president is talking about 10 years, and then after that, a Korea-like presence in perpetuity. Like guarding our embassy and fighting Al-Qaeda. And if there's need to train troops, the Iraqis...
Would you be satisfied with having some troops there in 2013?
No, I would think that the minimal... I would describe a minimal temporary force to be there for a few years following the end of next year. But I would describe a minimal temporary force to be there for a few years following the end of next year, but that's the choice. And I just want to be precise. The impeachment, that whole notion, which some of the base clearly would like, that's off the table. I've always said that impeachment is off the table.
Do you pray for our soldiers to win in Iraq?
Of course I do.
To win?
Of course I do. Of course. What a question. First of all, I pray for President Bush all the time.
You ever pray for him to change his policies?
All the time. The public is weary of this war. They want it to end, and they had expectations that Congress could end it. You know we can't without a presidential signature. But we have to again, hold the administration accountable every chance we get.
But let me ask you about that, because a lot of I agree with you. I think that is a big issue, particularly among the Democrats who voted you in and thought, all right, we put them in the majority, now they'll end the war. And anti-war activists say, look, you could do a lot more than you're doing. You could force a vote a day. You could hold Congress in session. You could cancel vacations. Why continue
to do what?
So when the left wing says do more, vote every day, no recesses, basically stop Washington, raise the level of pain here.
We don't have the president's signature.
MoveOn.org says the problem is that there are too many what they call dinos in Congress, Democrats in name only, and who are afraid to represent their constituents and stop the war, and they say they are seriously considering primary challenges against those Democrats. Primary challenges be a bad thing?
Well, I don't support it because the point is that the basic premise is wrong. The Democrats have voted for this. The problem is, and it's too inside baseball for most people to care.
Too inside baseball? I love baseball, and I love my country. Are you kidding me? Of course we care. Apparently, when you're worth $25 million, it's hard to stay in touch with the average working man and working woman.
Is that it's a 60-vote obstacle in the United States Senate.
Unbelievable. Shameless.
Again, the American people don't care about our process. Again, the American people don't care about our process.
What an insult to the American people. I can't even believe you said that to us. You're the one out of touch.
And as far as Democrats opposing Democrats in the primary, there isn't anybody here who would vote differently than any of these newcomers who are coming.
Nancy Pelosi, meet your replacement, Cindy Sheehan.